Hello, so today we will be discussing our bond valuation investment analysis for your grandma. So this is session 4 video assignment. So just to start off with the driver framework, first we have our define and discover, and then we have our represent, then our implement, and then validate, evolve, and reflect. So I'm going to be working through that framework that we learn about every class and every session. So first, let's just start off with define and discover. My thought process here was I need to get all the relevant information into one place. That way the Google Gemini can help me. So I went in here and I copy and pasted just all of this from the assignment, so I knew what I was working with. And so what we do know is that your grandmother sold her business, so she has $500,000 right now, and she wants help investing in bonds, which would be from us. And she's 68 years old, risk averse, and needs steady income. So we're comparing these three options that we want to be not that risky, and she just needs like kind of a stable income. So we're gonna analyze these three options and find out which one's best for grandma. So first we have the US Treasury bond, which all of these have 10-year maturity, so those stay constant throughout. And then the coupon rate for the Treasury bond is 4.5%. The Apple corporate bond is 5.2%. And then the coupon for the California state bond is 3.8%. But it is tax exempt, so we'll come back to that and note that later. But you have the prices right here, so 98, 102, and 100, and the par is 100, and these are semi-annual payments. But first, just to talk a little bit about it, the treasury bonds are safe. The government has to give you the money back. The corporate bonds, they promise to, so they technically do, but they're just promising. It could be an empty promise. And then same with the California, that is a government. So let's go first to the additional context, which was just that interest rates just rose 0.25%, and they may rise another 0.5% next quarter. So that we'll come back to that, but that does get important. And then the yield to maturity is going to be the most important thing to look for, which we talked about in class. In class, we didn't talk about taxing it, though, so we'll dive into that too. So, and then just the yield to maturity, this is just telling us what it is, which is just it makes the present value of all the bonds' future cash flows equal to like the current price. So it's the time value of money type thing, and it works with that. And then the yield's just the rate of return, so how much you're getting back from it, your investment. So first, let's go to the questions to explore. Which bond offers the best after-tax yield? I have them answered already, but we'll circle back to them. So how would another rate increase how much would another rate increase affect each bond's price? What mix would you recommend and why? And then should my grandma wait a little longer? So basically, we'll gun through those. So let's go over, we have our define and discover. Now let's go to the represent stage. So first I asked Gemini to make me a cash flow statement with all of it. And I told it to put it in a picture because we don't like to read these days. We like to visually see it, at least I do. So I looked at this, and although it looks really good, we always harp on validating your AI because we're in the driver's seat. It's not always right. So as I'm looking through here, you can see kind of where my cursor is. This option B starts at year 5, and this option C doesn't even have a timeline for it. So I saw these and I was like, this is fishy. So I told the AI that it was wrong, and it said, yes, it's wrong. This is what it did right, and this is what it did wrong. So the observation of it is just that it's showing that the they get paid semi-annually, so 2 times a year, and then the bond has 20 payments, so because 2 times 10 is 20. So this gave me the risk profile of them. So the Treasury has the lowest risk, like we said, because they have to give it back. The Apple Corp has the highest risk because it's not a U.S. thing. And then the California one is a moderate risk. It's right in the middle. But once again, we see that tax exempt, which we'll come back to. So the implement stage, this is where we actually get to have fun and use our AI to our advantage and do some coding with it. So right here I have option A, option B, option C, and then the taxable yield to maturity. So we are going to be focused on this taxable yield to maturity for our final thing. But we have green for good, yellow for medium, red for bad. So let's go over to our Gemini here. And I had it build me this calculator using this code. So basically, the code, you don't really have to know the ins and out of the code, because in this, I found it was pretty cool. It gives you the slots to change it for it instead of having to change it in the code, which I found has been the most useful part when I've just been playing around with this and trying it out. So let's start with our first one. So option A, we have a 10-year 4.5 and $98. So 98, 4.5, semi-annual. The tax rate, because she's in the 32nd percent. And my first iteration of this, it didn't have the tax rate or the tax status, but after evolving the process, I made it have that. So we go to taxable, calculate, and boom, it gives us our calculated yield to maturity. And so it's 4.754, and then it also gives us our after tax, which we'll be looking at. So I'll just do one more to show that it works for all of them. Let's skip over to C so I can show off the model. So this time we have 38% or 3.8% coupon rate, and it's part at face value. So $100, semi-annual, federal rate, but this time it's tax exempt. So we calculate the yield to maturity. We still have our expected return right here, but this is the taxable equivalent unit, which is what we need to look at for this one, because this is what we're actually getting back if we were to factor in taxes to all of this. So 3.8 and 5.58. So I have those written down already right here. And so basically, while playing around with this, I was able to find out that the taxable yield to maturity is the most important one that we should be looking at, which means option C is the best. Option B would be the second best because it has the second highest, and option A is the worst. And this is just in terms of yield to maturity. We haven't factored in our risk yet. So then I did a Gemini prompt, and I had it give me a risk and strategy check. So let's do it for option C real quick. It's analyzing right now. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Perfect. So it has all of the data already stored in it, and basically it gives us this nice long kind of risk checker and strategy checker. So basically I read through it before this, and what it was saying is that maybe staggering the investments would be better, which we talked about in class, that AI doesn't really give other ideas. So I thought that this was really good that it gave us an analysis for this. So then after we have those results, because of the code we got working with Gemini, we go to the validate stage, which is comparing the calculations with the actual bond prices and yields. And so you look at the Treasury one, the Apple Corp, and the California one. this is what we got with our calculator, 4.77, and anything inside of there is accurate. And so ours was high, which we're thinking that because of the interest rates and stuff. But then our Apple Corp one falls into the actual market range, and so does the California one. So that was good to see that we did that. And then this one has the conclusion from the analysis of what would actually be the best. And once again, it says option C would be the best because of that 5.588 yield. So to evolve, how would rate changes or credit downgrades affect my analysis? We talked about this. A further 0.5 increase in the market rates would cause the market price of all three 10-year bonds to fall. So basically it has an inverse relationship. So whenever the interest rates go up, the bond prices go down. So this leads us back into our answers to these questions. This is would you recommend her waiting a little longer? We said yes, because if it does rise, those bond prices are going to fall and she can get them at a discount. And then which bond offers the best after tax yield would be option C, like we said. And then which mix would I recommend? I would do option C because it has the highest after tax yield and it's not the most volatile. If we go back to our data, it's a low to moderate risk rather than a high risk. And then for the reflect, just what shocked me was kind of how option C had the initial yield. It was the lowest, but after we factored in that she's tax exempt, then it turned into the highest yield after. So that was interesting to me. And then once again, just seeing how time value of money exists within it with kind of that yield to maturity, it kind of plays into that. So I thought that was really cool. And I do really like my Gemini creation this time. This is probably the coolest one I've made, or like most user friendly. So I was really happy with that. It took me a while to get the tweaks out with the code and stuff, but after I did that, I thought this was a really cool addition. So I had fun with this project. It was a little frustrating at times. It took me the longest probably out of all of them, but it was definitely worth it because I feel like I have a deeper understanding of bonds in general and then bond analysis. So I hope that you enjoyed this session. Thank you.